Hello BookTube, it's Ben here from the History Fellow channel. I hope you're all keeping well today. We're having a nice sunny day today, so it makes a change for around here. Today's video I thought we'd do about genealogy or tracing your family tree, and I've got 6 or 7 books here that look at various aspects of genealogy, and they're kind of like guides to helping you out in specific areas. So here we go. First of all, we've got tracing your First World War ancestors. This is the 2nd edition, and that's written by Simon Fowler, and all these books are published by Pen and Sword Books. That's the first one. Then we've got Fashion and Family History, written by Jane Shrimpton. Let me just adjust the shine on the book. Tracing Your Prisoner Ancestors by Stephen Wade. And we have Tracing Your Scottish Family History on the Internet by Chris Patton. He also does an Irish book as well, but I can't seem to find that book today. And then we have A Guide to Tracing Your Family History Through the Census, or Using the Census. That's written by Emma Jolly. And we have Tracing Your Ancestors in the Lunatic Asylums. That's by Michelle Higgs. And then lastly, we've got Tracing Your Poor Ancestors. And that's by Stuart Raymond. Now then, I'll do like a quick review of each book, or a quick explanation as to which book, and then it makes it easier to work out which one would be most helpful for you. This one, Poor Ancestors. Now, poor ancestors you usually find, they didn't own property, they might not have had jobs, they might have lived from place to place or on the streets, that sort of thing. So often they've got no fixed information about, or record about where they lived or whether they were around, so obviously it's harder then to find out about them when you've got, like, if you're trying to find where they were 100 years ago. So it recommends organisations and small companies and places like churches and town halls where sometimes there might have been a register kept, or information at least, or they can then pass the message around to help you out. But that's certainly a good book, and if you do have poor ancestors, then you often need a lot more help in tracing your family tree, because they tend to be ancestors that lived around the country a bit more. The second one is probably a little bit harder. Tracing Your Lunatic Asylum Family or Ancestors. Now, there's often a stigma, particularly with if your family were in lunatic asylums, or if they were from a poor house, or even if they've been convicted of a crime and they were in prison. You'll often find people don't like to talk about that sort of thing, or there is no record, or even there might not even be a register. So it tells you all the locations and the information of various poorhouses, charities, local poor law commissions that might have a register or be able to give you some sort of information or help towards your cause. Many of these you'll find they were housed in old lunatic asylums, which are like the old Victorian hospitals. But the trouble is, these days many of them are being sold off or knocked down. So of course, you take the building down and then you take away quite a lot of the paperwork as well. So if that's not filed away properly, then lots of information can be lost. But that book will certainly help you out with that one. This one about the census. Now over here in Britain, we have a thing called a census, which has recently been done actually. The government does like a national survey every 10 years where it asks householders, all the information about the people that live in the houses or the homes, where they work, what jobs they have, what religion they follow, all their kind of beliefs in that. And this is used by the government to help with local transport, local facilities like schools and shopping centres and hospitals, and they can see if they've got a huge growth in 10 years' time. They can then predict the future where the next growth in population might be. So it means they can then look ahead and plan and see what facilities and services might be needed in another 10 years' time. But it also acts as a valuable tool if you want to trace your family background, because you can look up the census every 10 years and see where your family lived, what their jobs were, what kind of conditions they were living in, and it provides a huge amount of information. So I would particularly recommend that book because that's probably the most important one. The next one, the Scottish history. As I said, there is also an Irish one. A specific book for if you've got Scottish relatives, and you'll often find with the Scottish and the Irish backgrounds, they have a lot of history that's been written down and kept, because they're very big on surname research and keeping track of family. So there's quite a lot of information. So certainly the Scottish and the Irish books are good for if your family are from those countries. The Prisoners one. Certainly there is a reluctance for people to admit that maybe their grandparent or distant relative might have been a prisoner or done bad crimes, been convicted, and so they might not like to admit. So therefore, the information might not be freely available. It certainly gives you help and ideas on how to track down that information, where the person might have been kept in prison, whether they were transferred and that sort of thing. Maybe what happened to them in the end, whether they were still alive when they'd finished their sentence. But that's certainly an excellent book for that. This one, at first I thought was a bit odd really. Fashion and family history. But it's actually, when you sit and think about it, it's quite good. Because often when you're looking back into your family history research, you might not have the information written down, but you might have an old photograph, and that's especially handy if you can work out, by their clothes, what they're wearing, what the fashion is. Maybe they were from the 18th century, the 19th century. It can even show you what kind of job they did. If they were smartly dressed in a suit, they're more likely to be into business or some sort of white collar work. Or maybe you might have pictures and they look like, I don't know, bakers, cooks, miners, that sort of thing. So you can actually tell quite a lot about history by the people's clothes and what they were wearing at the time. So that is still a handy book, and it's actually quite a popular one in the range. And then lastly, we have the First World War ancestors. Now you can imagine what it's like when you've got millions of men going off to war. They all go in their regiments, they're all sent off, they're all over the place, all over Europe. In this particular case, you've got soldiers being injured, killed, and this takes you very much through like the Army, Navy and the RAF, or maybe not the RAF records in the First World War, but it certainly takes you through all the regiments, because they'll have kept a list of all the soldiers, their ages, where they came from, where they lived, and it provides a valuable piece of information for anyone wanting to trace their ancestors. So there you go, that's 7 books on tracing your family tree, or genealogy, whichever you would like to call. If you have any questions, or whether you think certain books would help you out, or whether you're just interested, or maybe you've even traced your family tree, let me know what's happened and whether there's any decent books that you can recommend, and I'll see if I can read them too, because I'm quite into genealogy. So thank you very much for watching. I shall see you next time on the next video. And if you've liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.